Good morning, everyone. Don't mind these freaking under eye circles. I have not slept very much this week. Not so much because of school, but because of other situations that I mentioned going on with my family. But thankfully, the surgery that my family member went through was successful. And now we wait for a few other things, and hopefully they'll be home this weekend because it has been a hell of a week. She's been hospitalized since last Thursday. So that's all I'll say about that. I appreciate if anyone put her in your thoughts, prayers, or words. Thank you if you did that, and even if you didn't. But yeah, I thank you for your grace and allowing me not to be as present as I'd like to be on here, or doing advocacy for our city and our citizens, documented and undocumented. So with that introduction, let's talk about all these press conferences that have been going around. We've had a lot here in LA, and they're great because they allow us to understand that the advocacy groups on the streets need help. They need more help. That has been evident. And it also allows us to see that it's not just them who are doing the work, teachers are doing the work, LAUSD is trying their best with what they can. But it also shows the systemic failures of the police state of Los Angeles. The mayor, that's a failure on her part, because she should be demanding that the LAPD stand outside of every school along with the LAPD police, the LAUSD police. There's only so many available units of LAUSD police cars or cruisers that could be out defending the schools. But if the mayor were to tell LAPD, you need to stand outside with the school so the students are not taken, which she can do, absolutely can. She has the executive power to do that, and she chooses not to. So let's just be real about that. Why would that help? Well, because if the LAPD was standing out there and they're giving the directive that anybody with a mask comes through, you are to question who they are and ask for warrants, then the laws would work. Wouldn't they? The TROs would work. Now, in some of the things that we heard yesterday, the gentleman said, I'm not going to name him, you know who he is, and I don't want to get into, because we're both fighting the same battle here. But he said that the TRO was ineffective, it goes out the window, that it means nothing. That is not 100% true. He is correct that it's not being respected by the federal government. Absolutely. Absolutely correct, 110% on that point. Do not disagree with him. It's not out the window because the mayor could use that TRO to direct the police to ensure that people are not being targeted. And I know you say, well, they're the federal government. Well, then what do you think a bounty hunter who's pretending to be ICE is going to do when encountered by an actual peace officer, and that peace officer asks him for a warrant? And they refuse. And they refuse to identify themselves. Now, guess what? Then the LAPD would have reasonable suspicion to think that this person is impersonating a federal officer and arrest them. We've seen some of these so-called ICE people picking up kids. They're not actual federal agents. They're bounty hunters. A real federal agent that understands the implication of going against a TRO will not do that job like that. And as much disdain as they might have for a land police officer, if they're wearing a uniform, there is a uniform to uniform protocol. So I'm pretty sure the majority of these ICE agents shooting guns and shit like that, they're not really ICE agents. They're either J6ers who are not really, they don't have any actual field and even if they're deputized, they're not actually federally trained agents like, you know, a guy that's worked Immigration Customs Patrol for 10 years. Or they're a bounty hunter. I guarantee you a federal agent that understands the implication of going against a judge and understands the issues that breaking constitutional amendments implies is not doing that work. Those are bounty hunters that don't care, that just want their money. Money hungry little leeches. Or racists. In which case, if you're a police officer with the LAPD or the LA County Sheriff or whatever, you ask for a warrant, the warrant's not there, it's not verified, which under I'm so tired of this, Title 18, 241, and 242, the United States Code 241, 242, they would have every authorization to not only stop them, but probably arrest them. But because the mayor and the police chief of LA are not, the chief said, oh yeah, verify the warrants, but if the mayor would tell LAPD, I need you outside every school, daily, that shit would stop. Now they're gonna turn around and say we don't have enough police force to do that. Yeah, you do. When you have 20 fucking cars going, or 15 cars going for 50 or 40 protesters, yeah, you do. Send out the entire downtown LA division. Let me tell you, you have more than enough people, because I've seen it. So these are the systemic failures within our city. Now, why isn't the mayor doing that? I don't know. Ask AIPAC. Ask AIPAC. Now, another point that was brought out in that conference was we can't handle the volume of calls coming in of people reporting things. Absolutely understandable. There is only so many things the same group of people can continue to do. Give them some grace. As much as that person mistreated me in the past and acted the way he did with me personally, when I tried to help, when I tried to learn, so I could become somebody within my community that can help coordinate more tactical teams and amplify his voice and give him visibility. He's right. How are they supposed to answer every call? The city of Los Angeles alone has over 2 million people. 49% of those people are Latino. That's why you see a disproportionate amount of Latinos being taken. Other than the fact that it's part of the Project 2025 to get rid of us, so they can have their new slave white class slaves, whatever. I'm sorry, guys. I'm running on very little sleep this week. Okay, I'm very sorry. You know what I meant. The federal government wants poor people to be the employees now. So, how do you help? Again, get to know your neighbors. That organization, along with other organizations, have hosted virtual trainings. But we've also seen some alabaster accomplices out there, mainly female, but I've heard some males too. I've seen the videos starting to question, who are you? Why are you doing that? No, you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. Now, if you swarm, cool. And I know it's dangerous because you might get shot now, right? Listen, revolutions are never bloodless. And if you truly want to fight for your freedom, and if you truly want to fight for your fascism, you understand that. Washington, D.C. is being heavily policed and militarized right now. People are going to perish. People have been perishing. How many people have died in immigration custody just this year? They count too. They're deaths of the revolution. How many people have been killed in Gaza? Again, deaths of the revolution. They were murders to the revolution. It happens. Historically, and analyzing this, yeah, some of us are not going to make it. But see, this is where we go from being a voice on the screen to putting up and shutting up. Okay? Because we're all on our screen talking to each other and trying to hold these conversations. But how many of you have met your neighbors and started to figure out plans of attack if your neighborhood gets invaded? Now, I've had that conversation in my home. I've talked to my family, my husband, my son. Like I said, we already said, civil war breaks out. Daughter-in-law grabs the parentals and the minor child, and off to the motherland they go. The rest of us, we're going to stay, we're going to fight. So, it is what it is. How many of you have had that conversation with your adult sons and daughters? And I'm saying sons and daughters because everybody's going to be quick and say the men, no, baby. In 1920s Mexico, the revolution was one thanks to the Adelitas, to the women. When tyranny gets like this, the division of sexes goes out the fucking window. Yeah, a woman might not be able to lift as much as you, but she might be smarter than you, and you need to respect that. She might know strategy. She might be able to stretch the food. She'll definitely know how to heal you better than a man, unless a man's medically trained, by intuition alone. So it's time to deconstruct our mentalities from these biases that have been imposed upon us as a society, and look to each other's strengths and weaknesses purely from an analytical standpoint, and then come with your strategy as to who's going to do what and how. Not because you get to be the commander and lead, but because everybody has to use their strengths. And it's not about telling people what to do. It's about coming together and facilitating communication amongst each other so that we can be the most effective. Because we can stand in front of screens and media cameras all day talking about these points and talking shit about the government. But until we get a good strategy going and we hit tactical points, we're going to continue in this narrative. That brings me to my next point. And anybody that understands causation and correlation, anybody that has higher than a college degree, a high school degree, probably understand this. Anybody who does discernment, anybody who has analytical thinking skills will get this. Anybody that's able to look at what I'm about to say, aside from their bias, whether it comes from your own personal experiences, where you live, or what you've seen, anybody who's able to understand the statement I'm about to say, you're already winning, okay? Racists come in on colors, not just white people. And so while currently it is showing that the racist people that are in power are white, it doesn't mean that all white people are racist. And it doesn't mean that they don't understand your plight. Do they have your point of view to understand your suffering the way that you do? No, they do not. They never will, because they were not colonized. Okay? But that doesn't mean that if there's allies there that you can't take the time to, instead of coming with them with apprehension, you come at them with compassion and being grateful that they want to help, and embrace them to help you, and allow them to help you with the advantages that they do have. Okay? Do you understand what I'm saying? If we want to defeat fascism, if we want to defeat the clowns in the White House, we're going to all have to come together despite our biases and despite our personal freaking differences and experiences. until we as a city, as a community, as a state, as a everything are able to see beyond here and go, okay, instead of 100, now we've got 5, how can we? And then you're like, well, how can I check who they are? Dude, come on, dude. Just ask them for their fucking socials and the LinkedIn. Somebody trying to infiltrate your movement and destroy it is not going to be able to recreate something that fast. Now, when I joined up to go participate, again, I'm not leadership. I'm nobody. I'm just somebody that goes to the protest. But when I started going to 50501 protests, the majority of that movement was Alabaster led. They're good at organizing. And I've met some wonderful people from all walks of life and all colors that have been out there with me at the MDC. And we've rocked together through the summer before things got screwy. And they were there helping bring food and feeding and wanting to be part of our community, but also a little bit apprehensive, not wanting to step on any toes, not wanting to get the mentality, the perception that they were white saviors, because they were not. They were trying to build community. So in order to be able to navigate this together, we too have to decolonize our minds. Okay? We too have to come to terms with the fact that some of these people, although their ancestors might have done us wrong, they themselves have gotten enough discernment and enough education and have known enough people to understand that history is what it is, and they are not the descendants that their ancestors wanted them to be. And until you guys open up as a collective and allow these people in to come help us, we are not going to win. Okay, we're not. In Texas, the people that stormed that ICE center had a few POCs, but some of them the majority of them were Alabaster. You know why? Because for all of its faults, Texans see themselves as Texans first and everything else after, provided they're not the fascist kind. So that's what I'm going to leave you with today. Just I got to order my fucking coffee so I can function. But until we allow our Alabaster accomplices to come in and we make community with them, which goes against all of this matcha, whatever the fuck it was, what we called it in the 90s. And other communities can come together and we stop seeing each other as black, white, or Latino. And I'm not saying don't be part of your heritage. I'm saying right now, there's no red versus blue, there's purple. There's no black, brown, and white, there's people. Yes, we come from different backgrounds and different races, but to create true unity and defeat this monster, we are all gonna have to come to terms with our own biases, our own racist views, because the fact that you think that all white people are evil, it does make you in fact racist. Because you're pointing at an entire race without acknowledging that not everybody's that way. And this is why it's important to stop using freaking labels that were given to us by those that came to colonize us. Because you're using them too. The moment you get off your high horse about who's brown enough to be part of your enclave, or who's down enough, or has done the work, or passed your litmus test, the moment you stop doing that and you just decide we are all people and we're all gonna come together and we're gonna knock this shit out, that's when we win. But until we all come up, and notice I'm not saying y'all, I'm saying all, because we all have implicit bias. Bias is something that is formed in our brain ever since we're born, because we learn it from our parents, from people, right? In the 90s, it was crazy. It was crazy. It's crazy. I still remember being called a beaner by little, this kid couldn't have been more than 6 or 7. It's African-American little girl, 98th Street, between Hoover And Figueroa, I was walking home and she's like, "Get off of my street, you beaner." She learned that from her parents. She was a little kid. I was a junior high kid. I went like, how? You know, like, I didn't understand why this little, that didn't mean all black people were bad. That didn't mean all my black friends were bad. That just meant this poor child heard this somewhere and learned it. So that's what I'm saying to you. You're going to have to learn to trust one another. You're going to have to learn to get to know one another. You're going to have to check out each other's LinkedIns, each other's socials, and break bread with each other and build community with each other despite your color, despite what you identify as. Because first and foremost, we are all human beings. At least that's what we're told, right? Which is why I keep telling you guys, I'm a humanist. I still have faith in the humanity. I will always have faith in humanity because I know there's more of humans that think like I do than humans that think like those idiots do. So until you get off your biases and decide that we're going to come together as community and not just meet up for the marches, but continue the conversations on our phones, on our signals, and continue to meet one another and, you know, have a cup of tea, have some coffee, and come up with some, with a strategy and some tactical points, we're not going to get anywhere. And this is the last I'm gonna say about this on this video, and I really want you to listen to this. Also remember who owns the majority of the Amendment 2s legally in California. It ain't us. So wouldn't you want those people on your side?